Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you want in the body and mind you want. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of freedom with food and your body, you're in the right place. Just a reminder that this podcast represents my own opinions. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult your doctor or healthcare professional for any individual medical questions you may have. Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is episode 73 of the podcast, Weight Loss and Wellness for Real. And if you're here and you're listening, I'm proud of you because the title of this episode is not super sexy. And often people can't figure out how values or value work relates to weight loss or to our physical health. But, of course it does. And that's why we're going to talk about it today. And also because this is one of my favorite topics. One of my favorite things to talk about is values work, because when I use it with my coaching clients, with my counseling and therapy clients, there's often a lot of movement, a lot of growth and change that comes from doing values work. So for me, it's something that I enjoy talking about. I am proud of you for listening, because when we working around our health and weight loss, and when it comes down to what I term, the deeper work, which values work is in my mind, not everyone is really ready to go there, which is totally fine. Everybody in their own time moves into that space, or may move into that space of where they're kind of willing and ready to do that deeper type work. Doing our deeper work, if you will, around weight loss or optimizing our physical health and emotional and mental health, for many people, just is a little bit too hard, too much work, takes too long. But of course, if you've been listening to me for a while, you understand this deeper work is what actually keeps us from slipping into old habits and patterns of overeating, of stress eating, of emotional eating, of using food and drink to soothe ourselves, all the things that keeps weight on or creates that yo-yo dieting cycle. The deeper work is needed to make sustained and lasting changes for life. And again, we talk about this all the time, but that's the actual goal, to lose the weight, to heal our relationship with food and our bodies, not for a couple of days, not for a couple of weeks or months or even a few years. It's to heal it for good for the rest of our lives. Okay, so values and how it relates to lasting changes that you want to make. When we are clear on our life, personal values, and I'm going to talk about ways to figure out what your personal values are, because although most of us have some similarities in values, we are all unique in the ones that are most important to us. So when we are clear on our own personal values, we can then make decisions based on our values, which lead to a sense of alignment with ourselves, a sense we are living in our authentic selves and living an authentic, true to values life. It's much more free feeling than any experience out there. And when we're in this way of living, of being in alignment with our values, we almost effortlessly find ourselves behaving, utilizing actions that create sustained goal attainment. And this is for any goal, any desire in life, but it also holds true for living in healthy bodies. When we're clear, when we have clarity around our life values, and we commit to making decisions based on our values, we learn how to not make decisions out of emotion, right? So not making decisions out of how we're feeling, but instead making decisions within our behavior based on our personal values. So here's an example. If I've done some work around values and I've become clear that one of my top values is health and well-being so that I can live in this world doing the activities I really want to do into old age, then when it comes time to make the decision to eat the 5 cookies or to eat 2 cookies, it's much more effortless to make the decision to eat the 2 cookies because I'm clear on my value and I've done the work to gain this clarity. My thoughts are now in the habit of, when faced with a cookie decision like that, to immediately go to, does this fit your value? And that habit thought that I've created for myself through doing this work around my values is such a blessing because it really makes it easy to only eat the 2 cookies and to be super happy about that, right? To really enjoy that decision. I've enjoyed a couple of cookies mindfully instead of eating the 6 cookies I used to that made me feel awful. And this feels really good because I've stayed in alignment with my value, health. And this feels so much better than the feeling I used to get from eating the 6 or more cookies. And this is the trick, right? To make thoughtful decisions around our choices that align with our values, but that feel really good. Because once we start feeling those wonderful feelings of being proud of ourselves for our behavior choices, feeling in alignment and authentic, those feelings are so powerful that they outweigh the really amazing feelings we get momentarily from overeating or over drinking. Okay, so how do we figure out your values? I personally love values inventories, and you can find a bunch online if you just type in the search bar values inventories. Most are going to take you through a series of questions, and after answering the questions, and by the way, when you're answering questions, make sure you are totally honest, you'll get fed back some of your top values. And once you have a list of your top 5 to 10 values, you can start to really begin to dig deeper into this work. And so here's a list of some of the personal values that many people have had. I often see these within their top 10. They can be things like authenticity, relationships, faith or spirituality, adventure, achievement, balance, compassion, boldness, service, stability, responsibility, pleasure, peace, knowledge, learning, love, inner harmony, influence, passion, optimism, consistency, courage, fun, wisdom, and there are so many more. But you could even rewind that list I just talked about and write down, if you're not driving, the top 5 out of just that list that stick out for you. But there are just so many. So you can do a search, you can do some of the inventories, or you can just look at a list of words, kind of like the list I just read, and pick some of your top 5 to 10. When we identify our core values, just like when we identify our feelings, which talked about lots of times in past episodes, this identification leads to new levels of understanding, which leads to more clarity, which leads to different feelings, which leads to different behaviors. And by identifying our values, our own personal values, we can begin to design a life that is in better alignment with our true selves. I hope you are finding something useful from these episodes and this podcast. And if so, please share it with someone else in your life you feel it could benefit. This podcast is also now monetized. So if you really feel you are getting a lot from it and want to help keep it going, please go to the episode show notes. You can just scroll down from wherever you're listening. You'll see a description of the episode, and then you will see it says support this podcast. And then there's a link you can click on. You can click on that link, and that's where you can support the podcast. Even the smallest donation, like 99 cents, helps to keep me producing the podcast. And to those of you who have donated, I really, really appreciate the support. I really do appreciate all of you listening and sharing the space with me. Again, just very thankful for all of you. I wanted to tell you about a company I recently used and that you may be interested in using as well. It is called 5 Strands, 5 the number, and then STRANDS, 5 Strands, and it is a test to learn about food intolerances, environmental intolerances, and it can give you lots of really good information on how your body is currently responding to your diet. So it can identify food or environmental intolerances, and then you can kind of temporarily remove these things from your diet and make lifestyle decisions around that in order to reduce inflammation, to feel a bit better. This isn't about allergy testing. This isn't the same if you were to go get allergy testing through blood. This is simply about a different process they use that help to identify not allergies, but simple intolerances to foods that you currently may be eating and things in your environment. And then once you have that knowledge, the idea is you can go into an elimination diet and take all those things out at once. Versus if any of you have done an elimination diet before, when you're trying to figure out what's working for you, what's not, it may be something like you take out all dairy, you have to wait 4 weeks to see how you respond, then you take out another thing, so it's just this really long process of trying to figure those things out. This is just a really quick, simple, easy way to get that information and eliminate all those things at once. And then the idea is you do slowly add them back in once your body, the inflammation has calmed down, your body's ready to respond to them again. So this isn't about eliminating these foods forever and always. It's simply about taking them out for a time period to really optimize your health, maybe even lose some weight, and then slowly adding them back in. And the test is so easy because you just send in some strands of hair, hence the name of the company, 5 Strands. You just send in some hair, you get results back within 5 to 7 days. The other reason I, when asked, agreed to work with this company was because their customer service was so amazing. Any questions you have, anything like that, they are just friendly, very knowledgeable. I just really, really appreciated this to me was like old school customer service. So they're a great company. And this sort of testing can just give you that idea of, okay, these are the things I'm going to try to cut out. And we'll see, trying to optimize feeling good, all that sort of stuff. And my own personal thing with this is I was noticing that I was having just some cues and feedback going on from my body with some regular things I had been eating where I had never had those negative cues and feedback before. And so I knew something was going on, and that's why I got into taking this test. And what was really interesting is some things came back that I knew would come back. Like I've always known dairy. I do not do well with dairy. I know I don't do well with eggs, things like that. But I really found some of the results fascinating. Like there were certain proteins that I was used to eating every single day that I'm highly right now currently in my lifestyle intolerant to, and other proteins that were just fine. So that helped me adjust to what I'm eating right now. Another thing that was really interesting is I always thought I was really intolerant to red wine, but was fine with all clear alcohol like vodka, all that kind of stuff. And actually, according to this, all clear alcohol is not good, but I'm totally cool with red wine. So things like that were really, really fascinating to me, and also just helped me create sort of this elimination diet plan for about 6 weeks that I'll be doing, and just gave me all the information in one shot. So I highly, highly recommend them if you are looking to optimize your health. It's a quick and easy test to just get more information. I really do hope you give it a try. I just believe more knowledge about our bodies and how they are working is such a key in gaining that optimal health. So if you want to give them a try, you can head over to 5strands.com. Again, it's the number 5 and then STRANDS.com. HEYNEN.com. And when you go to checkout, put in my name, Heather Heinen, HEYNEN, and you're going to get a nice discount. Figuring out your top values gives you that clarity and understanding of what decisions and choices you make will help you feel in alignment with your life and authentically with who you are as a person. And really what this work does is create attention. When we attend to our values, when we are gaining clarity and doing some of this values work in our lives, we are paying attention. Often we tend to just move through life not paying much attention to anything. It's sort of often this hurried daily life full of tasks and to-dos, and we often operate on autopilot, really just feeling very stressed out, overwhelmed, and not really thinking on these deeper levels of our lives that are actually what contribute to less stress, less overwhelm, less overeating, less overdrinking. So when we are paying attention to them and focusing on this deeper work, we often just move in everyday life from one thing to the next without really considering whether our actions, our behaviors reflect our core values. If I know what my personal values are and I start the work of making decisions based on those values, not based on my emotions or feelings, but making behavioral decisions based on my values, no matter what is swirling around me in life, I have a grounding that steadies me, that brings me calm, that centers me, that makes me feel in alignment. And from that space, there is no need to use food or drink or other distractions to deal with the craziness of everyday swirling life. There's no need to use those things to try to shift out of feelings. In fact, my entire perception of the so-called stresses in my life change with this work. The way I actually see my life and how I perceive what maybe used to appear to me to be overwhelming and stressful, that literally changes. That no longer appears overwhelming to me. And these are the benefits of doing this values work. When we go through life without following our personal values, we really lose ourselves in a way and our ability to create real happiness, create more moments of joy and peace in our lives. Once you've identified your values, there are different ways to do the values work that I teach and that I partner with my clients to work on. But one way is for each value, just to kind of give you at least one example in this episode, is for each value you identify, write down 3 or more actions or behaviors that define what it would mean for you to live these values. So here's an example. If you value loyalty, then actions may include needing to forgive a friend for betrayal or setting some boundaries and negotiating fair treatment at work to ensure your commitment to your employer. Another example might be your health. Maybe, you come up with one of your top values is health. And so actions that go along with this that you may come up with could be eating nourishing foods when hungry, stopping at enough, maybe setting some doable guidelines around sugar or alcohol. Maybe it's getting out for a 10-minute walk every day. Now write down one thing you have done that does not reflect each value. So for example, if you wrote down balance, then working 70-hour weeks is not in alignment with your personal value. So you would write that down. Okay. And then next you would write down what can you do differently next time. Maybe setting a guideline with yourself to cut down to a 65-hour work week this week. Or maybe it's when you leave work, you make a decision to not check your email anymore. Like after you leave work, you're not checking your email anymore. The doable possibilities here are pretty endless, and it's just coming up with different ideas for yourself on how to slowly start shifting your behavior so that it is more in alignment with the personal values that you have identified. And as you do some of this work, you may figure out that there are fairly simple and not always easy, but fairly simple ways you could live in closer alignment with your personal goals. Sometimes this work includes actually putting in work to change jobs. Or maybe it's working to stop drinking altogether, or maybe it's having a difficult conversation that you've been avoiding with someone. When there is a disconnect between our actions, our behaviors, and our values, we do suffer psychologically as well as mentally, emotionally, and even physiologically. So a common example for those of you listening with food and eating struggles is when you value health and well-being, but we're overeating and over drinking. We're not in alignment with our values. We're using behaviors that are not in alignment with our own personal value. It feels good in the moment to do the overeating, the over drinking, but shortly after we feel terrible. Another example is a person who holds the personal value of kindness and compassion, but when driving freaks out on slow drivers, feels good in the moment to release that anger and words in the moment, but feels terrible about himself or herself shortly after it. So that's when, not living in alignment with values. When we do the work around our values to identify them and what we need to do to live our values, and by the way, that means figuring out what we need to start thinking on purpose, because remember, thoughts create the feelings, sensations that motor our behaviors. It is then that we can start becoming the person that we really want to be. And as it gets easier to love ourselves, because this values work creates a healthier and more loving relationship with ourselves. So as it gets easier to love ourselves because we're living more in alignment with ourselves, we feel so much more at peace, so much more fulfilled, and so many more moments of joy. And I've done a lot of this work myself over the years, and it is an ongoing process and a journey. I don't think this work ever really ends. But years ago, I really realized one of my top values really is compassion and kindness. And I was living this value in some ways, like with my clients, with many friends, but I had a really big gap in this when it came to those closest to me in my life. So I found myself being really impatient with my young daughter sometimes, or if someone got in my way or did something I didn't agree with, I would raise my voice it was to offload my frustration and anger or disappointment. But anger and frustration are just rationalizations. They were excuses I would use to justify my behavior to myself. The truth is, living your values can be tough. And I, at that point in time, just wasn't ready to put in the work to get there. I realized, though, in these moments of no patience or raising my voice, I didn't recognize myself. I wasn't being authentic. And this was really doing some psychological damage. It was hard at first to get out of the habit of raising my voice or using patience when I was feeling angry or frustrated, but recognizing what was going on really helped me to stay mindful and create a new habit response, one that included pausing and reflecting and checking my tone of voice. And this shift in myself created much more harmony in my home, a deeper relationship with my daughter and others close to me, and beyond those benefits, created this lightness in me, a peace that has been unsurpassed. And you really can have this too when you start to do this work around values. Okay, so once you have a handle on and you've identified your personal values, we then would work to identify external events that can trigger you to move away from your core values. And then part of the key is identifying why these experiences affect you this way. And this is part of that deeper level work. So clarity and understanding of ourselves and our reactions and behaviors is needed. So that clarity is needed to make true, lasting change. And this is where I am often then asking clients, what thoughts, feelings, and sensations lead you to act differently than you would like to. So examples with food and eating are often external events that lead to the overeating or binging or over drinking, are things like being told you did a poor job at work, or maybe it's an argument with a loved one. It can also be celebrations of some kind. Overeating doesn't always come from negative situations, but once the external event is identified, we then move into what thoughts came up when this external event occurred, when the trigger occurred. Once the thoughts are identified, we move into what feelings were then created from these thoughts, as well as the sensations. And then we can link this to the motoring of the behaviors. And to move forward, we really need to deal with those uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, which, and truthfully, it's not always easy. Our behaviors, even the ones not in alignment with our values, usually make sense when we look at them as attempts to get our needs met. So, if overeating is the thing, we would look at overeating is meeting what need? Often it might be to check out, to find relief momentarily, maybe to change a feeling state. So the next step in this process is learning how to meet our needs in new ways that don't conflict with our values. My example of offloading my anger or frustration through lack of patience or raising my voice, I came to find that when I stopped doing this, I felt so good because I was living my values. But I recognized quickly that I had some needs that were not being met. When I was impatient or raised my voice to offload frustration with others, I was, it was an unconscious way of trying to stand up for myself, to gain some sense of love, or really for me, it was more likely respect and appreciation. I needed appreciation and respect, but how I was trying to get this was only making those closest to me treat me worse. And so this really was a cycle I created. I had a need for appreciation and respect from those closest to me. And so I reacted through impatience and raising my voice when frustrated, which created less respect and appreciation from others. So I created even less of what I was needing. And that's often what we do when we have not kind of done our work around our personal values. So in this instance, in order to change the cycle, to break the cycle, and to get my needs met, I had to learn to communicate differently in order to get those needs met. And this meant using patience with my daughter and incorporating a softer approach with her in all areas. And this meant being more direct with someone in my life who was hurting me and telling them how I would and would not allow them to treat me. This really came down to, in this situation, setting a lot of boundaries for myself. In our overeating example, think about here, what did you come up with in regards to the need that overeating or emotional eating is trying to meet for you? Once you figure this out, then it's time to work on how to get those needs met without food. And this is the deeper values, this deeper values work can really help us live our authentic, most fulfilling and meaningful lives. Doing work around our values can be super exciting, and it can be very uncomfortable and difficult at times too, but I'm telling you, it is so worth it. The freedom, the alignment, the peace that comes through this work is really unmatched than anything else that I've used within coaching and counseling processes. I'm going to wrap it up here. I do hope you found something useful or inspiring from this episode. I hope maybe that inspiration is just, at the very least, maybe a Google search of a values inventory and just getting clear, finding clarity on what your top personal values are. Even just that awareness can really help start move you in to some of this deeper work. If you did find anything useful and you know someone you think might also find it useful, if you would just share it with them, I would really appreciate it. You recommending this podcast, these episodes really go a long way for keeping me producing these episodes. I really appreciate you sharing this space with me, and we will talk soon. Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and get in touch with questions on all things I offer, like online courses for overeating, weight loss, goal attainment, and also my coaching and counseling services.